And now that brings us to verse 10. And verse 10 is a very remarkable prophecy and has a very kind of interesting story connected to it. In verse 10, it says, now look at this prophecy. Again, this is when they're in Egypt. The scepter shall not depart from Judah, nor a lawgiver from between his feet, until Shiloh comes, and to him, to Shiloh, shall be the obedience of the people. Now, Shiloh is one of the names of the Messiah. It's a messianic name. And Shiloh literally means to whom it belongs. To whom it belongs. Your translation might even say that instead of saying Shiloh here. To whom it belongs. So this prophecy, it's a remarkable prophecy. It says, the scepter shall not depart from Judah until Shiloh comes, until the Messiah comes, the one to whom the scepter belongs. Judah will produce the royal line of kings, beginning with David, to rule over Israel. The right of kingship will always be in the tribe of Judah and no other, and Judah will produce the Messiah, Shiloh, Jesus Christ, the one to whom the right to rule belongs. The scepter that is mentioned here, the staff, was a sign or a symbol of royal authority. The authority to make and enforce laws. The authority to punish people for breaking the law. You know, the authority that is given to the king over the people. If you remember, when the Roman soldiers mocked Jesus before crucifying him, remember they put a crown of thorns on his head, they put a purple robe on his back, and it says they put a scepter in his hand. And then they bowed down before him, mocking him before they beat him and led him out to be crucified. They mocked him for being the king of the Jews. That's what Jesus was condemned for. That was his crime, being the king of the Jews. Remember, even Pontius Pilate had a sign placed above Jesus' head on the cross that said he was the king of the Jews. So this prophecy in verse 10 says, the scepter, this authority, shall not depart from Judah until Shiloh comes. In other words, the Messiah would come before Judah ever lost the right to enforce the laws of God over their people. So then the obvious question is, when was the right to enforce the laws of God taken away from Judah? Because this prophecy is saying the Messiah must come before that happened. Well, I can tell you when they lost the right to enforce the laws over their people. And that was during the Roman time, when the Romans were ruling over them, specifically in 7 A.D. In 7 A.D., we know the year. In 7 A.D., the Romans took the authority from the Jews, took the authority from the line of Judah to rule over their people and to enforce their laws. Now, if you remember, when Jesus Christ was brought by the religious leaders to Pontius Pilate, the governor, the Roman governor, John chapter 18, they bring Jesus to the Roman governor Pilate, and Pilate said to the leaders of the Jews, "You take him and judge him according to your law." And the Jews said to Pilate, "It's not lawful for us to put anyone to death. It's not lawful for us to put anyone to death. We don't have the authority to put him to death." Well, since when? Since when do they not have the authority? Since 7 A.D. In 7 A.D., the Romans took that authority from the Jewish people. So in 7 A.D., that is when the scepter departed from Judah. Now here's the thing. This is where I love this kind of historical stuff. I hope you do too. If not, you're just going to have to bear with me for a couple minutes. When the Romans issued that decree, taking that authority from the Jewish people, the historian Josephus tells us that when that decree was issued, the high priest of Israel went throughout the streets of Jerusalem wearing sackcloth and ashes, crying out, "Woe unto us! The scepter has been taken from us, and Shiloh has not come." The word of God has failed. And he didn't know that the Messiah had come and was living as a little boy in Nazareth. The word of God did not fail. The word of God never fails. Isaiah chapter 40, verse 8 says, "The grass withers, the flower fades, but the word of our God stands forever." It doesn't fail. Jesus said, "Not one jot or tittle will pass from the law until it's all fulfilled." The word of God never fails. Even if we think the word of God has failed, it's just we don't have all the information. And for that high priest, he didn't know, he didn't realize that the Messiah had come. You know, most scholars believe that Jesus was born around the year 6 BC to 4 BC. And so that means that in the year that the Romans took the ruling authority from Judah in 7 AD, and the high priest went through the streets lamenting that the scepter has been taken from Judah and Shiloh has not come, that means Jesus would have been about 12 years old. You know what happened in Jesus' life when he was 12 years old? The one story that's recorded for us in the Gospels, when Jesus was 12, and Joseph and Mary took Jesus up to the temple to celebrate the Passover, and then they leave at the end of the feast, and they think Jesus is just with them in the multitude traveling back to Galilee. They get a days down the road. It's evening time. They realize Jesus isn't with them. They return back to Jerusalem. And where do they find Jesus? They find Jesus in the temple, it says, sitting with the teachers, both listening to them and asking them questions. And it says, "And all who heard him were astonished at his understanding and answers." And it was when Jesus was 12 years old that he revealed his knowledge in the temple. Possibly the same year as this Roman decree, when the scepter departed from Judah. We can't say for sure. It's about the same time. So verse 11 now, the prophecy for Judah continues. "Binding his donkey to the vine and his donkey's colt to the choice vine, he washed his garments in wine and his clothes in the blood of grapes. His eyes are darker than wine and his teeth whiter than milk." Now, typically, you wouldn't bind your donkey or tie your donkey to a choice vine because the donkey would just sit there and eat all the grapes off the choice vine. But what this prophecy is indicating is that the prosperity of Judah will be so abundant that you can bind your donkey to a choice vine and just let him eat the choice grapes. It doesn't matter because you have so much, right? You have plenty. He tells us here, this idea of washing your clothes in the blood of grapes. The idea here is wine will be as plentiful as water. And you can wash your clothes in wine if you want to. I don't know why you would want to do that, but there's plenty of wine to do that if you'd like to do that. And he mentions here that his eyes will be darker than wine, his teeth whiter than milk. This speaks of health, physical health. And I believe this part of the prophecy about Judah, I believe this is describing the kingdom age, when Jesus Christ returns to the earth and establishes his kingdom on the earth, and it'll be a time of great abundance and great prosperity under King Jesus.